Hello, I'm Nick Powills, publisher of 1851franchise.com. We are pleased to have you with us for the next while as we dive into A&W, the why you, why now, and why people are getting excited about it. So Anthony and John, thank you so much for joining us today. Appreciate the time we're going to spend together. So Anthony, let me start with you. John, then you. Tell me your story, just so that we can frame it for our group that's watching. Tell us about you, your involvement with the brand, how you got started, that sort of stuff. And we'll go Anthony and then John.
Yeah, so I'm a A&W franchisee, third generation franchisee, actually. My grandparents got into the brand in 1962. And my father got involved in the 70s and then myself after him. So it's been a lifelong career for me and everybody else in my family, actually. So we have one store in Wisconsin and possibly considering more locations in Wisconsin. But that's pretty much it as far as my involvement.
We're gonna dive into that now. I'll accept your apologies because that means you're a Green Bay Packer fan and I'm in Chicago. So
yes.
Anybody watching, let's just be clear. Aaron Rodgers does not own the Chicago Bears. Let's just be clear.
According to Wikipedia, he does.
Right. John, tell us your story.
Yeah, thanks, Nick and Anthony. Good to see you again. So I, before all this gray hair, I got into franchise development. So almost 20 years now, and I've been with A&W on the development side, real estate side for about 10, 11 months now. And I came over here for a variety of reasons. And at the top of the list really was the culture, the integrity of the brand owners, and really, quite frankly, the ownership structure and the team in place. It's just phenomenal, and so excited about the opportunities that we have here as a brand and as a franchise community. And so it has not disappointed, I can tell you, and just super excited. So thank you, Nick, again for putting this together, and Anthony.
All right, so tons to unpack in your story, Anthony. So obviously your family has been franchisees for quite some time. When you're growing up, are you thinking about how do I get into this business? Because sometimes when generational franchises are handed down, kids or grandchildren are like, I'm good. I'm going to go in a different pathway. But how do you even get to yes in a multi-generational business?
Well, I grew up working in the brand, and I saw the saw the flexibility that my parents had and my grandparents had with owning their business, and that was important to me. And I did think about doing other things. I sold cars for a while after college. My parents wanted me to work for somebody else, but it came back to it because of the culture with A&W is just incredible. I mean, it really has feels like a family culture from the top down. So, and it was a great opportunity for me to get into that kind of a franchise, as without my parents being in it would have taken a lot longer for me to get to that step. So, but yeah, and just in general, the company culture with A&W really kind of drew me in. I started going to conventions and meetings with my parents, and there's multiple second and third generation operators within our brand. So, the ties that we all had together, kind of growing up together, made it a pretty easy choice for me.
Anthony, when we're thinking about like the process, day one as a franchisee, obviously, again, you got to see the business as an insider outsider, but you decide, all right, I'm going to take charge of our family business. I am going to be the franchisee. Were you nervous about it? Were you like, what were your fears of doing this? Because obviously you built up a career in car sales and tried other things, but were you nervous about becoming a franchisee?
No, not really. I mean, we signed a 20-year agreement, and my dad threw a piece of paper on my desk and said, "You want to be a franchisee? Sign here." So, but no, I mean, I wasn't really nervous because we'd been, A&W's been around since 1919. Our store's been there since 1962. We can weather just about anything. So, I mean, if you're going to be nervous about anything, is this model going to work? Is it going to last? Can it stand the test of time? And I think A&W's obviously proven as far as that's concerned. So, no, I wasn't nervous. I was excited. I was 24 and had a franchise, so that was pretty cool for my age.
Well, and you just talked about the culture, which I would imagine, John, when you're talking to candidates, like that has to bubble up to the top. And we're going to dive into like the fundamentals of A&W with the support that goes to franchise owners. But does culture, John, does that turn into a big reason why people eventually say, like, I'm interested in this?
Yeah, for sure. And it's not a accident. I think that you've heard that a few times now from me and Anthony, and it's resonates really from the top of our organizational structure right throughout our franchise, all of our franchise partners, restaurants, and inevitably, and I should say my team has the great fortune to work with folks who have that, pick up the phone and have that first question about A&W. And sometimes it's, do you guys actually make your root beer question for A&W? And I'm like, yes, we do in our restaurants. and we guide them from that point. Really, I get to work with folks right through their due diligence, and then it expands into a real estate search. And ultimately, we help them with financing. But yes, absolutely. I mean, inevitably, there'll be some connection in some way to A&W that has brought folks to pick up the phone and reach out to us. And it goes back to that culture that, A&W, how it makes them feel, the frosty mug, our root beer floats. There is absolutely an emotional connection with our fans, and that's what we call them, of the brand. It's tremendous. And until you get a chance to start working with us a little bit and talking to some franchise owners like Anthony, and it's hard to quantify, Nick, I think, how strong that connection is, the culture piece and the connection to the brand in general.
Okay, let's dive into the business culture a little bit, Anthony. So obviously as a franchisee in a brand that is very franchisee centric, because the business is really owned by the franchisees, when you're looking at like operational support, how does that work? Do you feel supported? And then the second layer of this question ends up being, at what point do you start thinking about, maybe I want more restaurants, which is something that obviously we have to unpack from your opening statement. But
right.
Talk about the support, talk about the structure. How does a business even work?
Well, as far as the support on a day-to-day basis goes, A&W does a really good job of putting talented FGLs in the field, which is your first layer. They do a really good job of splitting those up by region of the country. So, there's a lot of similarities in between the stores that they interact with, and they do most of the groundwork for helping you out with any questions that you may have, whether it's menu items or pricing, P&L things, things like that, staffing, training, that kind of stuff. Beyond that are, above them, the executive team has been great to work with as well. I mean, it's a very good support structure. And then on top of that, we have the NOFA board, which is a franchise, A&W franchise owners board, which I'm a member on. And we're elected. We represent territories, and those are other franchisees that are going to vote on everything that the company does for the other franchisees that they represent. So it's a really interesting support group, as far as there's always somebody in a meeting making decisions who runs a restaurant just like you do. And it's not just a corporate says, I'm going to do this, and that's what happens, And then on the second part of your question, as far as opening up new stores, 2020 has been a tough year on everybody staffing wise. But our sales have been through the roof across the board. Nationwide, we've had great sales for the last couple of years, and beyond that, in fact. But yeah, I mean, opening up more stores is something that I'm definitely interested in. Kind of put it on the back burner going through the pandemic because it's tricky to take care of what we've got, but definitely something that we're looking at in the future for sure.
So one thing that I want to unpack from there is I mean, your family has been through various types of economies, whether that's as recent as 2008, where we all thought the sky was falling, or a 2001, where there's a lot of uncertainty. Does going through those things as a multi-generational franchisee change the way that you approach COVID? Like, were you scared? And then at what point did you start seeing, all right, maybe this is our opportunity? Talk through some of those fears and challenges that you may have had to battle through.
Yeah, so 2001 I wasn't involved with at all, but 2008 I remember quite a bit. It's like I said earlier, seeing as to we've been through so much, and just like with my resources within my family, talking with my father and my grandma about what they have been through. COVID has been completely different than any of those things because everything was thrown upside down. I was very nervous going into COVID, but that quickly turned around as soon as, we realized we've been doing takeout food and drive-through food forever, and we're really good at it. So now that that's everything that, anybody can order, it really worked out in our favor. We made a lot of changes. We put in double drive-through lanes. We really focused on timing at the drive-through, staffing at the drive-through. We got a lot better over the last 2 years as far as that goes. But yeah, I was a little nervous for sure going into COVID. But like you said, after going through bad economies and uncertain times in the past, you do feel quite a bit more confident than, if it were a new concept, new brand, new franchise, with no history for sure.
John, do you feel like the pandemic story for A&W gives you great fuel for where you're going to go as a business? Meaning you're able to point back and know at various times, and given the entire restaurant industry had to face it in a similar way, but your pandemic story ends up being great because it's almost like it reinvigorated the consumer to get excited about A&W again. They've always remembered it, and it was there for them when they needed the most. But does that turn into something that you're going to be able to propel into 2022 and beyond?
Yeah, it's a great point. Absolutely. And so we did recognize that quite a bit, that connection to the A&W brand, a memory of a time long before, I guess, and where folks started gravitating, not just on the food side, but in general in life, to more to comfort things that made them feel good. And A&W is one of those. And I think just to circle back, if I could, on the COVID story, so to speak, and Anthony mentioned it there, we had to pivot, like a lot of brands, during this, this uncertainty. And the dual order point was something that came up, and that our ops team and our marketing team was able to, flex and get creative on the fly. And that's just one really small example. And depending how much we get into the ops piece, I mean, Anthony can certainly probably share some more, but meetings were happening every day with our field, with our franchise partners and our executive team and our ops staff. And, and during that time, when I came in, like I said, almost 11 months now, a total number of employees on the corporate staff, the restaurant support center, that were let go, terminated during the pandemic was 0, grand total of 0. So that really speaks to the commitment to the culture of A&W, quite frankly, as does the fact that, during uncertain times, when we knew cash was king, we have something called the one store account, and on the marketing side, and those funds were released back to franchise owners for that uncertainty. Also royalties were suspended for a period of time. All this stuff that I think you get from a structure like A&W, where your franchise owners are your partners. And our mantra here on the development team really is responsible growth, responsible development. And I think as you look at 2022, Nick, and beyond, you'll see that. We'll see that as a basis of growth when we point back to, hey, not just look what we say, but look what we do. We're really are a company of our word. And last piece to the sales component that Anthony mentioned, we're up over double digits last year. We're tracking to be in that same place come January 1, 22 when we look back on 21. And even though, if you look at the last 10 years, and Anthony, you could definitely look back the last 10, 20, and 30 years, but these past 10 years, we're up as a brand over 50% same store sales. And so our trajectory, is clearly pointing north, and not just this last year or two, but for the last decade.
Anthony, when you're thinking through some of these things that John's talking about, advantages that came back to the franchisees during the pandemic, are those things happening because you as a franchise owner have a voice at the table and you're able to say, guys, here's what we're going to need to do this together? Like, does that end up being really the intangible asset that A&W needs to put front and center, that it is a collective voice of the franchisee?
Yeah, absolutely. I know that all of those decisions that were made were approved by the NAFA board, which is, like I said, a group of franchise owners that represent their districts. So like as John spoke about with the one store account and allowing those funds to go back to the franchise owner that was great. We're doing things like, if you want to spend money on your drive-through, you can you can get all that out of your account. You can do these things that we really needed to do quickly. And they really took the initiative to make sure that those things were happening for us as they needed, as soon as they needed to happen, they happened. And that's because of our board and A&W, corporate, and being able to sort those things out. And everybody on that board has the franchisee's best interest in mind. It's a group of franchisees. So we're not going to ever do anything that is going to harm the franchisees or delay them from being successful. So, and they act quickly. We have weekly calls. We do quarterly in-person, week-long meetings. And if we need to do something quickly and make it happen, it'll happen in a day. So it's really a benefit for the franchisee for sure. And corporate's always very supportive of everything that we decide to do, because they know we're the ones in the field doing it. So, if anybody knows best, it's us, really. So yeah, they were great with all of that.
Anthony, I want to dive into your psyche, if you allow me to.
Sure.
Going from a single unit to multi-unit, and when you're thinking through this, because I would imagine majority of people that are even considering A&W as an opportunity are going to go through some of the same sorts of things in their brain. And obviously you're not at yes yet, that this is the definitive time that I want to open up my next restaurant. But what is the process like? Like, are you business planning? Are you studying P&Ls? Are you looking at your bank account? Like, what is the process, and how do you go about doing your own soul searching to get to the answer that yes, A&W makes sense for me to open up another restaurant with?
Well, I think the biggest thing is taking a look at what market you're looking for and making sure that you can find something that's going to work in your market. I know A&W does a lot of pretty good research as far as that goes, and helping people find land and really evaluate the market that they're looking at. To be honest with you, I haven't delved too deep into any of that around me yet. I'm probably another 3 years out from looking at that personally, but I know that as far as looking into the different markets and doing some research, trying to find the right piece of property A&W really helps with that. As far as the P&L piece goes, I know that they do a lot of training as far on that as well. But yeah, I mean, the planning for us is a little bit different. We've got some land that we want to do some other things on. It's too close to our restaurant currently. You know, you can put an A&W anywhere and be successful. And then that's part of what made our brand what it is. We had so many different concepts throughout the years. I mean, we started with a little roadside stand that was just on the side of a highway, no windows, flipped up pieces of plywood, come order at the window. And then that turned into a drive-in, and then that turned into a full service restaurant where we did breakfast, lunch, and dinner and did everything. And then that turned into a drive-through. So, you know, but there's not one cookie cutter A&W that goes up everywhere and is successful. And in a lot of different markets, you know, the drive-ins do really well, and they're almost a historical piece in their communities. And then in other markets, it's the drive-through stores that, you know, are better. So, but yeah, I mean, A&W gives you lots of help along the way with looking at all those pieces when you're talking about building the business, for sure.
Okay, so there's something that I just heard in what you were saying is like, we had a roadside location, we had a drive-in, we had a full-in diner, and the reality is in the center of that still remains A&W. So it's like the affinity to the brand. Like, does that excite you about where the company's going to? That the affinity for the brand is so there, it's owned, and so many human beings have had some experience with it. Whether it's as simple as they tried root beer from a grocery store, or it's very specific as in this trip with my family, I had this, or it was in my neighborhood and it was a part of our meal structure. Like, is that the secret sauce here, that it really is, it's A&W, it doesn't matter what the widget ends up being?
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. You know, the thing that is so unique about A&W, in my opinion, and I've said this on every interview that I'm ever involved in, but we own root beer. You know, everybody can make a hamburger, everybody can make French fries. Nobody owns any of those, but we own root beer. That is us. And it doesn't matter. It's our biggest selling menu item, and it's also the most profitable menu item. So how can that be a bad thing? It's not. It's great. But that really makes our brand unique. And everybody has an A&W memory, whether you grew up with one in your neighborhood, you remember going to one as a kid, you went there after my birthday or after school or whatever. Everybody has an A&W memory, it seems like, at least in the Midwest. So yeah, it's the nostalgia piece in that everyone's connected to it. And us absolutely owning the product. That's just, it doesn't matter what the model is. People love A&W.
I mean, that's a fascinating point, and I'm glad that you just said that, because I haven't looked at the brand in that light. But the reality is, like, if I try to quickly think of a brand that owns something, like, you could take McDonald's with a Big Mac, it's still burgers and patties on bread, unownable. You could go to a Jersey Mike's, it's still meat and deli on bread. Like, you're right. It's probably very rare for a business opportunity to own something as unique as root beer.
Yeah, absolutely.
John, does that turn into, is that a part of the discussion? Do you feel like, do franchise buyers realize that moment, or is it later on down the sales process that they understand that, you know, there's something beyond just business here?
Yeah, I think really the minute we start chatting with a candidate and they get into the due diligence process, it becomes very clear because of how we operate in terms of you know, the due diligence process for candidates. And like I said lots of times, I'd say half the time almost, folks who come in into our world and want to ask about becoming a franchisee have a memory. You know, they have an A&W story. They'll say, "Hey, do you guys still do Coney Tuesdays?" And which if you're in the Midwest, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's, do you still do, are you still doing root beer floats? Is it, why is this that root beer tastes so great? Well, it's made in store every day and it's served off of a draft arm. And you cannot get, if you want a true A&W root beer, you can only get it in our stores, not in a can, not in a supermarket. And so yes, absolutely. If they don't come in with that feeling, Nick, or that background, they certainly understand it very quickly once they start chatting with us.
Anthony, if I'm a friend of yours, I'm like, I know you know this business. Tell me the insight. I need a little bit of money. Should I do this? Like, what advice would you give me as an operator?
I guess I'd say, yeah, absolutely. If you could find a good location. I mean, like I said before, our number one item is a drink, and our number two item is a drink with ice cream in it. So it's a very profitable business for sure. And like I said, it works in pretty much any market, just because of that nostalgia piece and the memory that everybody has. And yeah, I think A&W's future is very bright. I've been involved at the level that I'm at now for 10 years, and I've seen a lot of success stories, and some of my friends within the brand opening up multiple locations and becoming very successful. And I haven't seen many failures, if any. So I think it's a great investment, and it's a growing brand, and it has a great family culture. And yeah, I see no reason why. I mean, we've been around 102 years. I see no reason why we can't keep going for another 100 years.
Love it. John, I keep hearing, and Anthony, I'm going to use your insight here. I heard, if I said, give me the advice, you said, yeah, sure, if you could find the right piece of real estate. If I think through, what is your decision process like to decide I'm going to open up restaurant next? It's, can I find the right piece of real estate? John, how is corporate help franchisees identify the right land?
Yeah, great question. So we're very hands-on, and we're a little different than some other companies in that the support doesn't start when you open your restaurant on the operations side. It really starts from that first phone call you make with us. So our development department, my team, works with you again on the due diligence side, but then on the site procurement side. So we work around the country with a variety of different brokers, national, boutique, small, and we help evaluate pieces of real estate, conversions of existing restaurants, and we determine, through the use of proprietary analytics software that we have in-house, again, a little different than some, also our real estate committee that we convene to evaluate sites as a group, 6-7 of us, again, a little bit different. So we also help negotiate property. We help look at leases. If it's a land lease, we can, again, serve as a negotiating arm in those situations. But then on top of it, it has to work financially. So we also help direct, and we have a couple of ways we do this through a national lender in BoFly, as well as some other more conventional lending opportunities. My team also helps on the lending piece. And so regardless of sort of, hey, I want to open a restaurant in this exact, neighborhood or this area, we have to always keep that, responsible growth, that moral compass that guides us. We are not looking to do 30, 40, 50, 60 restaurants, annually. We're looking to do the right amount of restaurants in the right spaces. And so, yes, we help every step of the way, again, a little unique in that way. And sometimes we're a little more methodical, but it's definitely the right approach. You can, if you've gone through our process and you get to opening, we believe that we've mitigated many hurdles, and you should feel that you've had that support leading up to opening. And, and you're ready to go. I mean, that's really our approach. And, Anthony mentioned potentially some multi-unit development opportunities for himself and his family. Yeah, that'd be great. And you know what, if it's one really terrific store, that's great too. That's also how we're a little different. It's what's best for our franchisee, our franchise partner, not what's best for a spreadsheet or an awards goal, potentially, right? We're a little different in that way. And again, it's part of our culture, I think, and our story. And it's what makes it so exciting for me personally to be here with this brand. And I would imagine, again, why Anthony is here so long as well.
Anthony, I keep hearing support, structure, team. Like, the reality is, it seems like there's a really strong club that's been built here. So therefore, I would imagine you also want to be protective on who is allowed in. So from your viewpoint, tell me about the type of franchise owner you want sitting at the table with you next year, the year after. Like, what do they look like? Who is this person?
Well, yeah, that's that's a good question. And we want someone who wants to be involved and be engaged in the brand. We want to continue to build the brand, and it's the restaurant business is, from an operator's side of things, isn't necessarily for everybody. But A&W, again, is very supportive along the way with showing you, we're pretty proven on how to open a store, how to run a store. We can show you everything you need to know, basically. But someone who's motivated, loves the brand, loves the product. It's a fun business to be in, which is why I enjoy it so well. You have a lot of flexibility. You have a lot of community involvement. You've got, you're really a staple in your community. You employ a bunch of nice young kids, which is fun. But yeah, I was just looking for someone with a lot of motivation, and it's a proven recipe. So if you're committed to making it work and putting the time in, I mean, you're going to be successful. Yeah.
John, same question to you. From your perspective, who is the ideal candidate? And obviously, Anthony did a great job of framing it. But anything else you want to add on who the right person to join the family would be?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah. So someone, we don't necessarily require that someone has a prior restaurant operating experience. However, we do look to understand if a candidate has managed folks, has a good understanding of a profit and loss statement, is comfortable leading a team, things like that. It is not a passive investment for sure. It is a owner-operator model. So we look to ensure that someone is either going to be the franchisee and owner-operator, or they have a really strong business plan in place for who is going to be that day-to-day operator. And will they be connected in a minority ownership structure potentially, or some kind of management agreement. So what we don't do, Nick, to answer your question, is with candidates, and obviously they'll need to be financially have the wherewithal, of course, and we'll help them do that and decide if they can. And if they can't, we'll help put them in a plan to see what it looks like in a year or so from now. So that's also how we're a little bit different, is we'll build a financial profile with them and say, hey, maybe you're not ready right now financially, but you know what, you could be in a year or so. And here's kind of what that looks like. And so we do that for them on the front end, which is very different. But yeah, we want to make sure, again, that they're set up for success, because we're not just looking to protect them from themselves. We're also looking to protect our franchise partners and the integrity of the brand. And so we sleep pretty well at night, quite honestly, making sure that we have that right person, who has the ability to learn, who wants to learn, who can follow systems and processes, and someone who puts people first. Because I think I'm going to go out on a limb and assume that Anthony will agree with this, but A&W really at the center of what we do, the center of who we are is people, is the customer, is service. And so that's going to be really super important as far as a mindset for that ideal candidate as well.
John, for folks that have looked at the business in the past and
Yep.
sat on the sidelines, if I say either what has changed about the brand that makes today viable for them to start really taking this seriously, or just simply put, why now? What would your answer be?
Well, yeah, sure. So why now is, listen, our brand itself, again, the trajectory of our sales is one thing, and that's super important, of course. But our ability right now as a development team and a company to find the right locations with the processes and procedures we put in place, the ability from our partners on the lending, the finance side, to help set up debt service, your debt, right, over the course of your investment over the right period of time that makes sense for the candidate has never been better. Our brand recognition hasn't never been stronger. And quite frankly, our support team has never been in a better place to support growth. I think also when we look at, hey, what are we looking to build moving forward? We have a couple of different options. We have our freestanding base drive-through restaurant, which is, 3/4 of an acre and 2,176 square feet. Kind of our big animal of our portfolio. But then we also have some smaller opportunities. We have a national relationship with Walmart now. We have certainly seeing gas and convenience opportunities in the GNC side with some national folks as well as more independent. So, while we're not doing stands on the sides of the road anymore, though, I wouldn't mind, but we can't. We do have entry at a couple of different levels of investment, Nick. And again, the sky's the limit. There's green grass right now as far as areas to open, so we don't have to worry about cannibalizing or putting restaurants on top of each other. We just will not do that. It's always responsible growth. So for all those reasons, I think now is a great time to come back, take a look at us again.
Well, I heard something out of what you were just saying, and that's in most brands, the tail that wags the dog is, are we getting candidates that are financially qualified? Check mark. That's really the majority of how a brand is qualifying a candidate. And what you're saying is, let us find the right human. And I think Anthony is saying it the same way too. Like, we want people to join our family that are in. We don't want you one foot in, just barely jumping into A&W. We want you here, and we want you to be committed. And if you are, then we'll give you the support to help you find the pathway to finding success for your family or for whatever you're trying to accomplish from a business.
Yeah, that's correct. And Nick, I'll just add, if I can, we have the ability to do some of that because we have a very strong bank credit report. And I will not get in the weeds, I promise, and bore everybody right now about that. But I would suggest that folks take a look at that if they have some interest. And that gives us the flexibility, again, for some longer term conventional loans with some of our lenders, and of course SBA opportunities, and larger and smaller investments. So, but yes, it always starts with the person first, 100%. And then again, if the timing isn't right for them at that moment, or maybe there's someone else that makes up the other half of the equation that has some interest in the same kind of market, we play some matchmaking maybe. I mean, that's an opportunity. But again, we always, it's about that responsible growth at the right pace at the right time. And if we have the person that we think is the right fit, we'll try to work with them for sure.
Anthony, in closing, I would love for you to say, obviously, any other feedback that you want to provide. But what are you excited about for the next year? What are you looking forward to?
Yeah, I'm just very excited to keep the train moving. We've had the last 2 years have been the best 2 years that I've ever seen in this business. But as John's point too, the last 10 years have been very, very profitable years for everybody involved under Kevin Basner's leadership. It's been fantastic, and our whole exec team is great. But yeah, I'm looking forward to, going into the future. Who knows what the future brings? We thought we were in for 1 year of COVID, maybe. Now we're going into year 3. So, but yeah, I mean, moving forward for me, Sales have been through the roof for everybody. It's been a little bit of growing pains on our end, just trying to figure out how do we get this busy and maintain it. Now we've gotten pretty good at it, so just looking forward to another excellent year of sales. And I think right now is a great time for anybody to get into the drive-through business. That's for sure. And I know I'll say it until I'm blue in the face, but selling the root beer and the ice cream and those types of things are just, they're so profitable as compared to a lot of other items that other chains sell. It's a good equation. It really is. And it works. So
John, excitement for next year and any closing thoughts?
Yeah, so absolutely, definitely excited for next year. And I would say, Nick, the test of a franchisor or a person, I think, is how do you respond when things get tough? Is the integrity piece still at the front of mind? And I can tell you in my short 11 months and every franchisee that I've spoken to, that has been the case. I mean, we have responded to COVID, and it's never been easy. And then we had this little thing called, labor, right? That's become a problem. And guess what? We've managed to help in that way as best we can too. And so what I would just say, as folks look to evaluate brands, keep that mindset in place. Get to know your executive team, get to know the folks who are in the field, your franchise partners. I mean, our advisory board, which Anthony's a part of, are accessible. That's really, a little different. They'll talk to candidates. They'll make themselves available. And in times, now when the restaurants are busier than ever and sometimes shorter staff, they still make the time to talk to potential franchise owners. And that's across the board, our entire company. So I guess that would be my takeaway, Nick. 2022, we've never been better positioned as a company to help folks develop really good restaurants all over the country. And if things go awry a little bit, I would say know that you have the right people in the boat with you, which should be really top of mind when you start evaluating brands.
I love that. Gentlemen, I really appreciate this conversation. Time is obviously precious. Both of you have tremendous passion for this brand. Thank you for the discussion today. And hopefully for anybody that's watching this, you've gained some more additional knowledge into what it would take to join A&W. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everybody.